And now I feel like I'm on air. What's up, guys? This is the Unlimited Podcast, episode number 13. I'm Matt from Unlimited, and I'm glad to be back hosting a podcast. Thank you, Tyler, by the way, for hosting the hockey podcast with Brett Litke. The Padcasts. Those were two great episodes.
I was going to say, we were only able to schedule two, but
yeah,
I'm flattered nonetheless that you've...
But if you guys... but if you guys missed them, go find them in the Unlimited Podcast playlist, where they talk about they previewed the first round of the NHL playoffs and then the finals of the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup, which if I remember correctly, did you both say Nashville in 5 or 6?
No, Brett said Nashville in 7.
Okay.
And I went with my head and said Pittsburgh in either 6 or 7. But if Pittsburgh continues to play the way that, and sorry, I'm going off on a little bit of a thing here,
That's
but like
okay.
right now the finals are weird because Nashville, for the most part, has been out playing Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh's been burying their chances. It's weird how hockey can work that way, where Nashville has been the all-around better team, at least for the most part, but Pittsburgh is getting their chances and making them count.
Right.
So if that trend continues, again, it's weird how sometimes sports, especially like hockey, can work like that. But here we are. Pittsburgh has a 2-0 lead. Game 3 is tonight back in Nashville. We'll see if Nashville can try to cut that lead in half, but we'll see.
Plus, you got to realize, too, Nashville is without, like, 1 or 2 of their big stars.
Yeah, Ryan Johansson's out for the rest of the year. He had a freak injury at the end of the Western Conference Finals. They got Mike Fisher back, but both teams are dinged up, so that's why Brett and I said, like, again, we were just hoping for a competitive series, so if Pittsburgh ends up sweeping this thing, we're going to look really dumb.
Yeah, I mean, well, you did this podcast, like, knowing that he was out, or was he out after?
Johansson?
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew he was out. It was pretty much determined because I don't know if he's been released from the hospital yet. He's been in there for a while now.
Okay.
I forget exactly what the injury was, but it was a weird thing where he seemed fine, but then he said, like, when he got out of the shower, like, he couldn't even really, like, walk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so... But, yeah, so both teams, like, again, both teams are dinked up. Again, like, Pittsburgh's without their big defender, Letang, but they're still a well-oiled machine. So we'll see what happens in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I'm not the only one, and you're probably not the only one that really just does not want to see Pittsburgh win. Even though you predicted
it, though.
I think it's safe to say that it probably will happen.
We'll see.
I'm not denying Nashville. I mean, they made it far, and for them,
I'm not denying them either.
And especially like considering that they've never been to the Cup, it's their first time in a Stanley Cup, and this is just this could be considered, even if they lose. Yeah, if they lose, a learning experience for them, and they'll come back next year and be
a successful because they were the 8th seed, so it's a successful season for them no matter what.
They were the 8th seed. Like, there were questions about whether they could even make the playoffs, would even make the playoffs, and they did make the playoffs.
People had the Blackhawks sweeping them in the first round, and it was the complete opposite.
Yeah, just goes to show just how unpredictable and how great hockey is. But we're
Best
not
playoffs
here.
in all sports.
But we're not
here to talk about hockey.
No, we're not here to talk about that stuff. No. If you're expecting hockey, if you're expecting wrestling, no, that's not happening. We're here to talk about baseball.
We've always hated wrestling.
I've always hated wrestling. By God. But yeah, we're already 2 months into the MLB season. It's already June.
It's not early in the season anymore, guys.
Yeah, for everyone that continuously says, oh, they still have a long season to play. It's already June.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting closer to the All-Star break, and we're already seeing some divisions seem to be already locked. And then other divisions can go pretty much any way. Looking at all 6 divisions right now, you can make an argument that the NL East is a lock. You can make the argument that the AL West is a lock. And then there are divisions like the NL Central and the AL Central that are just anyone's game. And it's the NL Central I look at specifically, and it's not anyone's game because of just how great the teams are. None of those teams are great. And that includes the defending world champion Chicago Cubs. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that's working out right now because, I mean, the Brewers 3 games over 500, still in first place by 1.5 games over St. Louis. They're obviously a team with their flaws. I mean, Eric Thames has come down to earth at least a little bit, but he's still being that reliable cleanup hitter that they signed him to be, so they're happy about that. But their pitching staff isn't the greatest, not the greatest really all-around lineup. St. Louis is going to continue to be that consistent machine. I mean, yeah, they're not the great force they once were, but they still have their reliable pieces who may not be superstars, but can get the job done. And then the Cubs, to kind of round out this top 3, I mean, when we talked about like how it isn't early anymore, the Cubs are the team that really most applies to, because people were saying, oh, it's early, they're going to get their legs back under them. And exactly, I still think they can.
Yeah.
But it's June. Like, again, like, you can't just be like, oh, it's April or, oh, it's May. No, it's June. The weather's starting to heat up a little bit. If you can't get on a consistent pace, you're going to be in trouble. And it's almost a saving grace that the Cubs are in a tight NL Central right now, as opposed to, like, an NL East where the Nationals are up 11 games, or an AL West where the Astros are up, like, 12.5 games or something like that. Like, it's a saving grace that they're still in this because, like you said, no team in the NL Central has really, like, stood out and said, this is our division.
I think that the division as a whole has stood out of just how mediocre-ish they are. I mean, I'm not saying that...
I'll say average instead of mediocre, but I get
I'm not saying that the Cubs don't have a good team. They clearly do. They're the defending World Series champions. I'm not saying that the Cardinals don't have a good team, considering that every year they finish with records above 500. Almost every year they make the playoffs. Last year was a rare exception.
Mm-hmm.
You got a team like the Pirates who, as recently as 2 seasons ago, had the 3rd best record in the NL and was fighting for a wild card.
Yeah.
And then you got teams like the Reds and the Brewers that, even though you look at the teams on paper and you don't really like what you see, you can clearly see that they're kind of building in the right direction and rebuilding for the future, especially in the case of the Reds. And we talked a little bit about Eric Thames. My laptop is shaking here. I apologize. The biggest thing about him, and I guess this is kind of what we're going to get into, like when we talk about not really disappointing players, but players that aren't really as hot as they once were. Everyone continuously raves about, he went to Korea or Japan, where it was Korea, right?
Korea, yeah.
And the only thing he kept doing right was he learned how to hit the breaking ball. He learned how to hit the breaking ball, and he got to MLB and he continued to learn how to hit the breaking ball. Now he can't hit a fastball.
It's weird how the ebbs and flows of baseball work. That's all I can really, because, I mean, you and I have never put on the spikes. We've never been on a roster of 25 fighting for a world title, so obviously we can't speak to experience of that. But it doesn't take someone who's been in the box in the big leagues to notice weird trends. And you're absolutely right. But, again, like, right now, the Brewers team as a whole, again, like, in a division full of average, they're the ones standing out right now. I believe it was Joel Sherman on MLB Tonight the other night. Hell, it might have been last night. Said a funny thing about, like, it's weird that the Brewers are rebuilding yet contending.
It's the same thing with the Yankees.
So, well, that's a little
in a different way. We'll get to them.
Yeah, but like with the Brewers, like, so come July, come around the All-Star break, or like just around like the trade deadline, if this trend keeps up and you're at the top of the division, what do you do? Like, do you try to get like a bona fide ace to help your team out?
Right.
Do you just roll with what you got so that way you
Or
can
do
still
you
try
make
to
like,
make strides?
or maybe you make like some small quick fixes and maybe get a guy, even though he's struggling, get a guy like Quintana, because even though Quintana's not an ace, he could be the ace for that club.
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to note. Like,
And keep in mind too, the Brewers are doing a lot of this are having a lot of this success without Ryan Braun. He's 2 disabled list stints already,
yeah.
and currently on the DL. I went to the Mets Brewers game on Memorial Day, and it was weird not seeing him in the lineup.
Yeah, it's weird that they're like, again, like this whole division is just kind of puzzling right now. Again, you could kind of compare the Cubs World Series hangover to the Boston Red Sox in 2005, finally breaking the curse, and then the next season they were just kind of there. I
Yeah,
don't even think they made the playoffs that year.
and even in 2014 when they won it in 2013, and then the next year they had a losing record.
Weren't they like dead last in the division? Something like that.
I think 2015 they were last.
Okay, because I know there were a couple stints where like they contended and then they did this weird like sellout thing, but then almost immediately they built back up again.
Yeah, because you went from that dreadful 2012 season where Bobby V was their manager.
Yeah.
Then 2013 they go from worst to first, and then the next year it's like after that great moment they were just kind of meh.
Yep.
But I guess we'll stick to the NL Central since we're still talking about it. Do you think the Brewers are for real? And I know we kind of talked about this, but
Do I think the Brewers are for real? You're gonna hate me for this answer, but I don't know. Like, because again, like
that's actually my answer.
yeah, comparing them like to everyone else in the Central, because yeah, the Cubs are struggling right now, but let's be real here. That whole roster is a dormant volcano ready to blow.
You got
Once that
MVP,
team
Cy
starts,
Young.
yeah, if that team just can get at least a little hot, they easily can run away with that division. But again, when's that going to be coming? Because we are here on June 3rd, and the Cubs are third place in this division right now. So yes, there's the potential there,
right?
But we haven't seen it yet. So
and it's scary to think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I don't know. It's just weird. So, and unfortunately, like really, I can't give a definitive on any team in this division if they're for real or not.
Yeah, because I ask about the Brewers because to me, other than the Reds, they were the most unexpected contender in this division because you have the Cubs, clearly you have the Cardinals, the Pirates maybe could make a splash, but then you had teams like the Brewers and the Reds. The Reds I didn't think would be even close to contention, and they're only 4 back, or no, they're actually 3 back. The Brewers are in first, and even though it's not by much, they're still in first place in a division with the defending World Series champion and the boring model of consistency Cardinals. But I don't think they're legit until they go after a starter, and I think that if they still are in contention, they should go after a starter or 2. Or maybe someone to put in their bullpen. They need something. I don't think that they can survive with the team they have.
Yeah, I mean, even though it is June, unfortunately, we are going to have to say again the whole ask me next month thing.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I hate doing that, but
oh yeah, especially like at June, but again, at this point, like with such muck and mire in the NL Central right now, until someone stands out and says, "Hey, we're here," this division is up for grabs because the Pirates are in last place, but they're only 4 back.
Right.
So this very well could be anybody's ball game.
Yeah, and even looking at a team like the Reds, who expected them anywhere near the top? And they spent a lot of April in first place. And
Yeah.
now in May, they ended May, and now they're 25-28. They've won one in a row. They've won one. Good. But even though it's just it's crazy, and I know we keep mentioning it, but it's just crazy how close this is.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Let's talk about some standout performers in this division. You got anybody in mind? As your
I have to apologize because I'm eating again.
Ryan Braun.
Don't you put words in my mouth.
I don't know why it'd be him. He's not even playing.
Don't try to make me look dumb on your own show. No. First, I have to apologize because not only am I eating, but I also am fighting like a sore throat and a cold. So if you hear me hacking up a lung at some points, I'm sorry. So,
damn it, Tyler.
I actually have two names, one positive, one negative here in the NL Central. I'll go negative first to end on a positive note. Kyle Schwarber.
Oh, yes. He was actually one of mine.
There are talks of him like going down and doing a stint in AAA, which, I mean,
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, which is kind of like when you first hear it, like, no, you're like, oh, no, Kyle Schwarber, no way. But like, if like he didn't help them win a World Series back in October when he magically was healed in time, this would be a foregone conclusion. He'd be in Iowa right now. But like, Joe Maddon's still trying to figure things out. Now he's resorted to platooning him only against righties, and they've been facing they have like a amount of righties that are like stacked up against them for the next few games. But if he doesn't prove that he can hit off them, yeah, you might have to send him down for a little bit of a stint and see what happens.
Right.
So, and to kind of pair this with my positive player, the Cubs have kind of been just a miss without Dexter Fowler.
Yep.
Who has been just everything the Cardinals could ask for right now. And in fact, the Cardinals are in Wrigley, and yesterday, in his first at-bat back at Wrigley Field when he got his World Series ring, Dexter Fowler goes yard.
It was a leadoff home run, too, I think.
Yes, it was.
His specialty. Oh, man.
So, I mean, Dexter Fowler, like, he's definitely, like, if he could continue to get hot, he only has a 230 average right now, but he's been getting kind of hot lately. So if he can continue that streak, it wouldn't surprise me if you see him in Miami as the All-Star representative, or at least an All-Star representative for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Right. It got to a point too where like he was struggling so much in April that like even in our fantasy team he was dropped. I dropped him because and this is a guy that 2 years ago scored. It might have been even been last year. Scored over 100 runs.
Yeah.
I guess sticking with the Cubs theme. Another disappointing player that I had, not really surprisingly, is Rizzo.
I own him in fantasy, and he's been showing some like promises of like being okay.
Yeah, but I mean, he hit 194 in May. The power's still there. Like he hit 6 home runs in April. He hit another 6 home runs in May. But something's just not right with him, and this is a theme for this entire Cubs team where they're still in it, but something just doesn't look right. And I think a lot of that is Rizzo. Brian is starting to come down to earth a little bit. Schwarber is just atrocious. Zobrist is not what he is. Arrieta's not who he is. There's a lot of problems with this Cubs team. And yeah, it all goes back to the whole World Series hangover. I get that. But they need Rizzo to produce because Rizzo's the leader. It's not even a question. And 194 batting average in May kind of concerns me a little bit.
Especially considering it's June now.
Correct. It's June 3rd, is it? Yeah, June 3rd. Wow. Surprise.
It's funny, we were talking about Dexter Fowler, and I literally just picked him up in my fantasy league.
Wow, I think he's still available in our league.
Oh, the league I pay no attention to?
Yeah, if you want him, take him. I don't really care. Let me go back to another hot player, and this guy has been hot since the beginning of the season, and it's Zach Cozart of the Reds.
Yes, he has.
The guy's hitting over 340. He hit 344 in May. Walked 14 times, hit 6 home runs, drove in 18 runs, scored 19 runs. I mean, where did this guy come from? I'm waiting for the inevitable DL stint because I know it's coming. But for now, though, I'm enjoying him. Like, what is going on? It's Cozart.
All right, talk again for a sec.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, for some reason there, like your mic was like acting weird, so you're
Sometimes
fine for now.
Happens. I don't know. Google Hangouts is weird sometimes.
Yeah, but no, you're absolutely right. With a war of 3, Zach Cozart. I mean, you talked about all-stars. At this point, Zach Cozart is probably the starting shortstop in the all-star game.
He probably, even though the fans are probably not going to vote for him because he has no idea who he is, yeah.
Should be. Doing static.
Yeah, because your screen looks a little blurry too. Can you hear me?
When you let like your mic like rest, like there's like static with it.
Oh,
which is weird. Like, I don't know. Maybe unplug and plug it in again.
Sure. Hello.
I still hear the static. And like again, it's all coming from your side, so.
Can you hear it without the mic?
Yeah.
Can you hear the static? Is what I meant.
Oh no, I can hear you.
All right, then I'll do it without the mic for now. I'll just do it with my laptop mic.
Okay, cool.
All right,
but yeah. So Zach Cozart.
About him, yeah, Zach Cozart.
Yeah, it's weird when guys just figure things out. Like they kind of lay dormant, and then all of a sudden, like we were talking off camera about Josh Donaldson, which we'll get to him in a little bit. But how guys will be just kind of stand around players, and then all of a sudden they'll just turn into these superstars. They'll figure things out. Zach Cozart is figuring things out and is a big reason why the Reds are even relevant in the NL Central right now. He is just a reliable. I want to say he hits second or third in that. I think does he hit second in that lineup ahead of Joey Votto?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes Hamilton, Cozart, Votto.
Yep.
But yeah, Cozart has been reliable. I mean, obviously very reliable, and has really been the heartbeat of that lineup because Billy Hamilton's kind of fallen back down to earth a little bit. He was hot for a few weeks back in May, but kind of like faded out again. But he's going to be in the lineup because speed, which good thing.
Yeah, he's always a guy on my radar. I mean, he's never going to hit well. He's going to hit low 200s every year. He's not really going to hit for a lot of power. But when he gets on base, he's going to steal a base.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no question about that. And that's why he's
at least a base.
At least a base. That's why he's always high on my list. I mean, this guy scored I think he scored from second on a sac fly. He reached first on a ground ball to first. Like, that's how fast he is.
Mm-hmm.
My last standout player for the division is actually Jimmy Nelson, pitcher for the Brewers. 2.28 ERA in May, in 5 starts. He's 2-1, 27 innings. He struck out 31. He only walked 6. Here's a guy who struggled a lot in April with a 301 opposing batting average. He dropped that down to a 245. He has a 179 and 11 strikeouts already in June in his 1 start. Even though he's never going to produce ace-like stuff, he could be their ace going forward. I mean, you look at Chase Anderson, who had a really good April. is having a struggling May. You know, he could be a good ace down the road, even if it's not really an ace.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say right now he's kind of the ace, very much
By
by default.
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to be. But hey, I mean, if he can continue to be that reliable guy for the Brewers, how about it? Like, baseball's always more fun when there's exciting races. So if the Brewers can stay in it, if every team could stay in the NL Central this year, it'd be fun.
Right.
So yeah, go Jimmy Nelson. I'm happy for him.
You have one more standout?
At least not really off the top of my head for the NL Central. But yeah, we can move. We spent a lot of time on them, so we can move on to another.
All right, let's go to the AL Central. The one that's equally as cool. Well, not really as close, but you know, the Royals, as I'm repping their shirt right now, they are in last place and they're only 6 back.
And they've been showing at least some signs of life.
Yeah. And which is good because, you know, they're getting some injured players back, which is great. They still have one of the worst offenses in the AL, if not the worst.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're 7 games under 500 and 6 back. But even this division, when we talk about the Brewers and the Reds and how nobody really expected them to be in any sort of contention. But remember last year when there was a certain team in Minnesota that finished with a record of over 100 losses? You remember them?
I feel like I'm back in 2015, except here they're winning the division right now.
Yeah, and that's the Minnesota Twins. And even though they're only 5 games over 500, they're in first place in the American League Central.
And I don't get why.
It's just like 2015 all over again. Like, why are they in first?
Yeah, like I'm pulling up like some numbers like on like players and stuff right now, but like it's just one player, and I guess this could be like to just kind of start talking points. Like, I mean, we talked about him a little bit before, but how about Cy Young candidate Irvin Santana?
I know.
7-2 record, 1.75 ERA. 3.2 WAR. Like, this is unreal because he's always been a run-of-the-mill starting pitcher.
Right, and he's always been an injury risk, and he's never really talked about, and now he's the talk of Minnesota.
Yeah, because, like Brian Dozier, like, is only hitting 242, like, only 8 home runs, 22 RBI.
I have a feeling that June is going to be his month.
Is Dozier's month?
Yeah, because he's usually a late bloomer. Because remember last year, I mean, he had over 40 home runs, and I think like at least 20 or 25 of them were in the second half of the year.
He was the MVP of the second half last year.
Easily, without question. That him or Joey Votto, but either of them could have qualified.
Respectively for like the AL and NL, they were the second half MVPs.
Right. But yeah, I mean, the Minnesota freaking Twins are in first place over the runner-up of the World Series, the Cleveland Indians.
And this is a little different because the Indians are only a game back, and like they have Kipnis back now, who's like still trying to find his way, but they're still like trying to figure it all out. But unfortunately, like, are they still without Corey Kluber? Is he still on the DL?
No, they just got him back.
They just got him back. So if they can get him back to being the ace he once was, then it's going to be less of an issue than the Cubs.
Right. I guess, like, sticking with the Indians, yeah, it didn't help that Kipnis was hurt. It didn't help Kluber was hurt. But now they have everyone back. They have Brantley, they have Kipnis, they have Kluber. That right there is a great trio and a recipe for disaster in that division.
Mm-hmm.
You have a great outfielder, great second baseman, and an ace, a Cy Young winner. Brantley a couple years ago was an MVP runner-up. He missed last year, I know, but he's come back strong this year. Kipnis, he's a late bloomer too. He'll come out of it. Kluber started off slow. His first start back from the DL, pitched like the ace I know him as. So, yeah, the Indians are definitely a team to watch.
And we talked about dormant volcanoes earlier. Let's not forget that they got the big fish in free agency in Edwin Encarnacion.
Yep.
So if he can get hot with the weather here this summer at rest of the AL Central, look out. Because if this guy shows like at least like half of what he was doing in Toronto last year, you have a scary player on your hands.
Yes, you do. Sticking with the Indians, though, I guess this will kind of lead me to my first standout player, and it's kind of a standout in a disappointing way, and that's Danny Salazar. Here's a guy last year that I was incredibly high on. And, last year, up until the very end, he pitched well. He struggled a bit at the end, but he was still reliable enough to get by, to have a solid number 2. And it's gotten to a point this year where he needs to get moved to the bullpen. And in May, he had a ERA over 6 in 5 starts. In June, he's already made 1 appearance out of the pen. I mean, what the hell happened to him? Something's not right.
It's weird how pitcher, like, I know, like, it's not much deep, in-depth analysis for us to say, like, oh, it's weird, but it's strange, again, how these trends can happen with pitchers. And it's unfortunate. You mentioned Salazar, like, Carrasco, like, was he hurt at some point? I
Carrasco had an injury, but he has a 2.89 ERA. He's the ace of the team right now.
Yeah, like, he's, like, good, but, like, and it'll help that they have Kluber back, but they need to take, like, that. He needs to also, like, try to take, like, that next step, too.
And, you look at some of the other starters of this team, and this has been a big problem for them this year. For a team last year who you could make the argument that they had the best starting pitching staff in the American League. Danny Salazar's ERA is over a 5. Josh Tomlin's ERA is over a 5. Trevor Bauer's ERA is a 6.
Yeah.
And we're in June.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been pretty lost throughout the first 2 months of the season. I don't know if this trend is going to continue, and if it does, that could cost the Indians in the end.
Yeah, and it's weird considering, keep in mind, last year at the end of the season and in the playoff run, they lost Carrasco, they lost Salazar, and they still made the World freaking Series.
Yep. And
part of that was an incredibly hot offense, but even so.
And if I remember correctly, I think that they only had a 3-man rotation in the playoffs.
Pretty much.
It was basically Kluber, Bauer, and Tomlin.
Yeah, because they had like those like randos like make starts and win games. Like
right.
I forget the kid's name, but the kid who had that like McAllister, who had that the start that won them the AL pennant.
Yeah. But they're a team that, again, just like the Cubs, still in it, but in a better position, at least, for us.
Right.
Let's see. Here, a team that I don't really have a lot of faith in is the Tigers. They still don't have a bullpen. In the 7 years or 5 or whatever, I don't even know how long I've been saying this, but
I was gonna say you could copy and paste that statement how many years back?
Every year it's they need bullpen help. They need bullpen help. 2017, they need bullpen help. They're not getting any. But
you had not only Chapman, but Melanson and Kenley Jansen as well. You could have easily paid big money for one of those 3.
Oh, and hell, you know what? If we're even talking about, and we're going to get to the NL West later, Greg Holland was available.
Well, that was kind of anybody's guess, but
he's got 20 saves already, and it's June.
Again, we'll get to it, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I guess this will kind of lead me to another disappointing player, and I can't believe I'm actually going to say this. Miguel Cabrera.
It gets the best of us, my friend, and Miguel Cabrera is no spring chicken.
No, he's not. He's starting to look a little alive, which is good.
There's signs of life.
There's signs of life. But he looked kind of off in May. He hit in the 250s. His batting average is hovering it's now at a 275. He's starting to pick up the pace. He's going to be crucial for them down the stretch, like he is all the time.
Yeah.
But even looking at a guy like Miguel Cabrera, and you're like, he's struggling in the early part of the season compared to a guy like a Ryan Zimmerman who's hitting like 360.
Yeah. I know his contract is another 5 years, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see Miguel Cabrera retire at some point soon.
Honestly, yeah.
I mean, hey, dude's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Easily.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hit for the Triple Crown for the first time in God remembers how long.
2 consecutive MVPs. You know, he's hit 40 home runs a year. He bats over 300 every year.
Yeah, he's had a great career.
The guy's going to go into the Hall of Fame. It's not even a question. It's just a matter of when.
Yes. So the fact that he's struggling now, yeah, we can point it out. But and plus, like, the thing with Miguel Cabrera too is like he's such a likable player too, a likable guy. Like, did you see? I forget the kid's name, but the kid who made his debut for the Royals when Miguel Cabrera stepped into the box, like before he was ready for his at bat, he flashed him a thumbs up to say like, "Hey kid, hey, like you made it to the big leagues. All right, give me your best stuff." Like,
yeah, I think
that's awesome.
That's awesome. It really is.
Yeah,
he's
like
a class act.
Yeah, like again, like he's one of those guys in Major League Baseball that like nobody has a problem with him. He's just such a good guy, great guy for the game to be around. Good like Latin player to like. Obviously, he built his own legacy coming from. I believe he's from Venezuela, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So for him to come over here and become one of the best hitters to ever play the game, and to be a likable guy while doing it,
yeah,
good for Miggy Cabrera. Absolutely.
You have any standouts?
Not really anybody else for the AL Central besides again like Irvin Santana. Like, just again, I'm still mystified by how well he's playing right now.
I'm just, not even how he's playing and just how the Twins are playing.
Yeah. So I guess should we ask the question, are the Twins for real? And the answer is still I don't know.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Because honestly, I don't think anyone saw this coming.
And this one's a little less like, I don't know. It's a little different than the Brewers because, like, again, the Indians are only a game back. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's not like they're leading the division by 15 games.
Right.
So, you know, it's still anybody's game in the AL Central.
Yes, it is.
Even the White Sox, who I thought were going to have the worst record in the AL, and you know they're pretty close.
Yeah, they're staying in fourth. So.
I think 5 games back, and they're in 4th. Yeah, not too bad, especially considering the ace of your team is struggling so much to a point where they're probably not going to trade him at the deadline. But yeah. If you hear music, by the way, there's a party going on like down the block.
Okay.
So if you hear Spanish music and see me dancing, that would be it. I guess we'll shift to the East.
Which one?
Let's talk about the NL first, and let's start off by talking about the team that's in last. The 17-35, 2-8 in their last 10, lost 5 games in a row, 16.5 games back Phillies.
Excuse me for one moment. Okay, but for real, they suck. Dude, this was supposed to be.
How are you surviving?
This was supposed to be a turning a corner season, not like make the playoffs like Minnesota Twins turning a corner, but like signs of life, like showing that, like, okay, maybe June, July, these young prospects can come up and we can kind of start to see what we're building towards. Maybe we could sell off a Jeremy Hellickson, maybe one of the pieces we got for a 1-year deal in the bullpen. Nothing is working. The starters are rubbish. The offense can't get any runs. The bullpen is Russian roulette every night. It's bad, man. Like, it's gotten to the point where, like, to kind of tell, like, an anecdote to show, like, how, like, bad this has been for me. As you know, I've pretty much given up on WWE. I still keep track of it, but due to circumstances I've talked about before, I'm not really too in on WWE anymore. So I'll keep track, so in case I'm on your show talking about it in the future, whatever. So Monday and Tuesday nights, instead of watching SmackDown or Raw for, like, April and some of May, I would just, like, listen to Phillies games or, like, even watch Phillies games. I don't even bother anymore. Like, they gave up yet another double-digit loss to the struggling San Francisco Giants last night.
Oh, yeah, they're struggling, all right.
Like, it's bad, man, to the point where, like, if this trend continues, what the hell are you going to do come trade time? Because if none of these pieces are hot, no one's going to want to tango with you as trade partner. Nobody.
And now,
so
at
this point,
the guy,
you just have to hope that Jeremy Hellickson could get hot enough to beat
I was
them.
about to say, like, even the guy that is supposed to be their trade piece is starting to struggle.
Yes, like, you have to hope that, like, a Pat Neshek or a Joaquin Benoit gets decent enough out of the bullpen to be traded for a piece, a, like, double-A piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, like, you can hear me kind of raising my voice a little more, but it's frustrating, man. Like, barely anybody is showing up to that ballpark, and at this point, can you blame them?
No, not at all. And I thought that the Mets were bad.
Yeah, like, we were talking, like, off air before we went on about, like, oh, which of our sad teams is worse. It's the Phillies by a mile, because the Mets, yeah, there's some other offensive struggles and whatnot, but for the most part, like, they're injured because Cespedes not healthy, Syndergaard not healthy, Matt Harvey, who knows, and
Familia not healthy,
and Jacob deGrom is forced to carry the load, and he's kind of withering a little bit, being the guy.
Yeah, he's a guy that I mentioned in the April recap that I wasn't really. I was actually really concerned because he was walking a lot. He was giving up a lot more hits.
Yeah.
There were at least 2 or 3 starts where he walked 5 batters while striking out 8 batters. And, and for the Mets, and I think I've texted you this before too, like, Terry Collins says this start for Matt Harvey was great. I don't know how walking 4 batters every start makes the start great.
It's thank God he's not collapsing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's thank God he's a body carrying our rotation right now.
Honestly, like, Gesellman's not panning out. Matt still isn't back. Harvey's just when he's high, he's not that high. When he's low, he's really, really low.
Yeah, so continuing my point is that, like, the Mets are kind of injury riddled, like, with their stars and whatnot, but there's still some bright spots. The Phillies are healthy. Completely healthy.
That's the scary part. Like, they don't really have to worry about,
like, Aaron Altair is going to be our all-star representative by default. Like, he was hot for a little bit in May, but even now he's just kind of like, all right, yeah, like, back to, like, all right, pretty much an average player, because Odubel Herrera is not doing great. Maikel Franco, like, there were rumors of Maikel Franco possibly going down to AAA.
Which wouldn't really surprise me at this point.
Wouldn't surprise me either, but, like, just at this point, like, you just have to throw your hands up in the air and say, what do you do?
And it's like, looking at you and all the other Phillies fans I know, it's like
Alec Costable,
Alec and everyone, like, why root for them at this point? What's there to root for?
I wish I could tell you, man.
The prayer that they win 2 games in June, like, if that's what you're rooting for, that's bad. That's bad because they were 6-20 or 6-22 in May.
I don't even want to look it up. Like it's at the point too where like Giants, like last night the Giants put a 4 spot up on them, and they were like, I didn't watch any of the game, but it seemed pretty much like they were just like, meh, all right, we're out of it. Which is bad because for the first couple months of the season they were showing fight.
They were
showing like that they were in games. They had a couple walk-off wins. The fact that this team is giving up in June, like, what do you do now? Because you just extended Pete McCannon. You can't just fire him.
Yeah.
I think you absolutely have to fire Bob McClure immediately, their pitching coach, because – and, like, there are the people who will say, oh, well, he's not the one going out there giving up all these runs. Yeah, but it gets to a point where sometimes players need a new voice.
They do, and at this point, like, I think that the Phillies need a head-to-toe rebuild like the Cubs.
But, like, how?
Exactly. At this rate, like, what are you going to do, trade everyone?
Yeah, you can't. You can't. I don't know, man. I don't know what can be done to save this team.
I feel for you, like,
and they have pieces in the minors too. They have Rhys Hoskins, Dylan Cousins, who are just hitting bombs left and right. Jake Thompson, who's starting to figure it out again. Roman Quinn, who is just a speedy guy who could just get on base repeatedly.
Right.
But, like, there's really no room to, like, really bring him up because, like, you have stopgaps like Howie Kendrick and Michael Saunders who need to get hot to be traded.
Is he back, Kendrick?
I think yes. He hasn't really seen too much time because, like, Altair's been playing so well.
Right.
But I think for the I want to say he's back. Yeah, let me check that real quick.
Because I know I drafted him, and when I saw he went on the DL, I dropped him.
Yeah, because he was starting to hit DL.
What'd you say? I clearly missed that.
I said he was starting to get to be hot, but then he, like, almost immediately went on the DL. Yeah, he's activated.
I mean, at this rate, it's like, you know, if we're talking about, like, there are a lot of there are a few close divisions, and, you know, even the last place teams are still in it. I think the Phillies are the only exception, or one of the only exceptions, other than the A's, and we'll get to them later. But
well, at this point, no one's in the NL East except the Nationals.
At this point, and this is what I mentioned at the beginning of the show. It's the Nationals division to lose. This is one of the two divisions that, and this is how I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I predicted this division. The only thing that I got wrong so far is that I said that the Marlins were going to be in third. And that's the only thing I got wrong. Other than that, the Mets are mediocre like I thought they were going to be. The Braves are mediocre like I thought they were going to be. The Marlins are starting to get hot. But even starting to get hot doesn't really get you anywhere.
Keep in mind they recently played the Philadelphia Phillies, too.
Correct.
And that's another thing. Like, the Phillies were just in Miami playing the Marlins, the team literally right above them in the standings. And the Marlins wiped the floor with them.
Yep.
It wasn't even close. That's bad. And especially
Marlins,
considering that big ballpark barely brings in like a couple thousand people a night. And guess what? They wiped the floor with the Philadelphia Phillies, all right. It was funny. There was one, I think it was Tuesday night when Giancarlo Stanton goes deep, and the next day he's out of the lineup with, like, I think it was like hamstring tightness or something tightness. And I'm like, oh, I guess he got tightness from running around the bases so much.
But yeah, honestly,
I don't know, man. This is supposed to be the year they turned a corner.
And they haven't, and I don't think they will.
They're going backwards, and it is not good.
I guess that kind of answers the question that I was going to ask, and that is, do you see them turning a corner? But I really don't.
Not at this point. Not when they're giving up close to like 7 or 8 runs a game over the past, like, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, not when Herrera, wasn't he an all-star last year?
Yep.
He's benched. Franco, everyone's panning him to be an all-star in the future. And, there are rumors about him going to AAA. You got Jared Eichhoff. He still does not have a win. And to be fair, that's not all his fault. but he's not really pitching well either. He's striking out a lot of batters.
He got hit around by the Giants last night.
Yeah, I mean, Nola was hurt. Hellickson, inconsistent. The bullpen is atrocious, and honestly, and that's been a problem for years.
And because of all of this, nobody on that team has confidence right now.
No, and they shouldn't. But this is and I think that this is why I think signing McCannon or extending McCannon was a bad move, because it should be him that steps up there and tries to fire them up, and it doesn't seem like he is. From the outside looking in,
it seems like they've kind of backed themselves into a corner, man.
They really have.
And I don't know how they're going to fight their way out.
This kind of reminds me of like 2009, 2011, 2012 Mets. It's I've been through this before, and it's not fun.
Nope.
Which makes it all the more better in the end. But even that, like, when is the end?
Exactly.
When is
because you can't replace a full 25-man roster.
No, you can't trade 25 players for 25 players. Like, it's not happening.
No. So I
honestly,
know we haven't really talked too much about the whole Nationals being in first place thing, but like, it's a foregone conclusion, dude.
Yeah, it's been like that since the beginning of the year. And I even said from the beginning when I did my predictions, nobody can beat that team.
Not in their division,
Only
anyway.
They can beat themselves.
Which they've done in the past.
And they've done, and see 2015 as an example, and every year they make the playoffs. But honestly, it's a foregone conclusion. Nationals are winning. Not even a question. Standout performers, Ryan Zimmerman.
Pretty much.
Ryan Zimmerman. Everyone else in
Anthony Rendon too.
Rendon, man. I don't think Gabe will ever forgive me for what I told him.
I know this story.
Gabe, he's struggling. He sucks. Drop Rendon. Next day, 6 for 6, 3 homers.
How many RBI did he have in that game? Like 8, 10?
8 or 9? He might have been 10, honestly. Whoops! And he could have beat me for the week.
Anthony Rendon's been hot, man.
Definitely, and that Nationals team has been on fire, as expected. I mean, they're 8-2 in their last 10. They've got an 11-game lead. I mean, but seriously, who didn't see this coming?
No.
Other than the I shouldn't say crappy. Other than the, I'm trying to figure out how to word this, because I'm about to insult my own fans.
Delusional?
The delusional Mets fans, the delusional Braves fans that, tried to say like, oh, you're full of you-know-what. Like, the Mets are going to be in it. The Braves are going to be in it. The Braves are not in it.
No, nor should they be.
The Mets aren't even in a wild card position. So they're not in it either. The Marlins, who I predicted, are not in it. The Phillies are definitely not in it, clearly. But this division, I still think it's the weakest. I don't even think it's close.
It's not close. It's 0% close.
I could have made an argument for the AL East last year, or not last year, 2 years ago. But, yeah. Standout performers, the entire Nationals team. And the entire Phillies team. In different ways. I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, Giancarlo Stanton, we mentioned players getting hot. He hasn't been terrible. Like, he's been hitting well again. I mean, I know we just mentioned he's been playing the Phillies, but
right.
But he's still being the slugger for them that they need him to be. So
I've seen a couple of Stanton home runs. Oh man, especially I remember the one
just missiles.
Yeah, pretty much. I went to an April 2015 game, and that was the game where he hit a home run into the second Phillies bullpen. Oh man.
Yeah, he's a freak of nature, man. That's why, like, when he's up to bat, you can't miss it because
He's an
like,
attraction, which is sad because that Marlins attendance is so bad.
yeah, but he just has the capability to just hit missiles. Like, you go to the ballpark early to see him hit batting practice.
Yep.
Like, kind of like how did you see where Aaron Judge has been hitting balls lately?
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing, man. Just that's scary where he hits those balls.
Let's go.
Should we use that as our transition to the American League East?
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. Let's go to the AL East. And
how about those baby Bombers?
So remember when we did our preseason predictions podcast, and some guy who was my guest, you may know him, predicted that the Yankees were going to be a dark horse team, and we're now in June, and they're in first. You remember that?
I told you they were going to make some noise, man, and like, I mean, obviously the talk of the town is Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge, but Aaron Hicks has been playing pretty well too.
I think the other day it was 4 for 5, 3 doubles, 6 RBI. I mean, wow.
317 average, 2.1 wins above replacement. I mean, talk about a team that's clicking right now, man.
And it's not even their offense, too. Like, their pitching staff has surprisingly been decent. I'm not saying that
CC Sabathia's, like, showing kind of signs of old.
Yeah, a little bit. And
meanwhile, their biggest question mark is their ace.
I was going to say, like, that on the flip side, that'll bring me to my first standout player, and that's Tanaka, because of just how bad he's doing. I mean, here's a guy that they signed for a long-term deal, which is a stupid move because
he can opt out after this year, but right now I think based on how he's pitching, I think he's going to stay and keep the money he's making.
He's going to keep the money he's making to suck. That's what he's going to do.
Pitchers can always find a way to turn it around too, because Darvish has struggled in the past and he's doing well this season too.
But damn, I mean, looking at Tanaka's splits, if I can open them. In May, he had an 8.42 ERA.
Yeah,
2-4 in 6 starts. He's still. Let me see. 34 strikeouts. I mean, he's still striking out guys. That's not a question. Mm-hmm. Something's not right with him either. But you talk about CC. He's shown flashes of old CC, and you're completely right when you say that.
Yes, a 6-2 record, 4.12 ERA, which might be a little high, but hey, I mean, it's
respectable for him.
Yes, especially for like where he was fitting in that rotation too.
And I believe this is his last year.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if after this year he retires.
Yeah, I wouldn't oppose.
No.
It's kind of funny too. I joined. There's a social media website for baseball, and it's called Grand Slam Amina or Anima, something like that.
Yeah.
And there was a poll that was posted saying who is the greatest pitcher of all time, and there are 5 options. First of all, Roger Clemens was spelled wrong. And CC Sabathia was in the poll. And I commented saying, why is CC Sabathia on this poll? And the guy said, because he has the 4th most strikeouts of any lefty. Okay, so what about the guy who has the most, the 2nd most, the 3rd most?
I know Steve Carlson's up there.
The list was Clemens, Koufax, Sabathia, Nolan Ryan, and I forgot the 5th person, but Sabathia with those guys? Come on.
Yeah, good, not great.
Yeah, I mean, it was 4th most strikeouts. Oh, okay.
Among lefties.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but like kind of reining in, like going back to these Yankees, like It's crazy, man. Like, they're playing very well. And, like, this division as a whole, too, is, like, interesting because remember how we were talking about how the Jays were, like, supposed to be in panic mode? They're getting a little hot lately.
Yes, they have, and even the Mariners are starting to get hot. But we'll get to the West in a minute.
Yeah, like the Jays are only 5.5 back, only 2.5 back in the wild card, and Josh Donaldson is back. He's healthy, and he's hitting bombs.
Yeah, you got Donaldson and Bautista. That right there is a recipe for disaster, especially if Bautista can start to continue to get hot.
Kendrys Morales isn't even doing too bad too.
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy that, when they lost Encarnacion, he was a guy that the Blue Jays needed to go after, and he's done well for them so far.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with a switch-hitting DH with some power.
No, especially in that park.
Yeah.
Rogers Center is a home run park. I mean, even if he went to the Yankees, like, those are two perfect fits for him right off the bat, other than Kansas City. Not at all. That'll kind of bring me to another standout player with the Yankees. And, I talked about Tanaka standing out in a bad way, but Luis Severino has been standing out in a really good way.
Yeah.
He's transitioned into their ace, 2.88 ERA, 2-1 record in May, in 34 innings, 36 strikeouts. He's walked 11 batters. It's a little high, but not terrible. Even in in April, he had a 175 opposing average. It went up a little bit in May, but Severino, every time I see him pitch, he looks confident. He looks locked in. The ball just fires out of his hand, and he looks great. He's pitching great. Could this keep up? Who knows?
Yeah, right now the Yankees are pretty much all systems go.
And I still hate Brett Gardner.
Yes, you do. And we were talking before we went on air about the possibility of them maybe adding another starter for security and for years down the line. So maybe dealing for someone like a Garrett Cole, who isn't just a one-year rental, who could be someone who's under team control for a couple years and be someone to really, like, build around.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think going after a guy like Cole, or even though the Rays probably would never do this, go after a guy like Archer, or hell, even going after Quintana, even though Quintana's not doing well. It would definitely help them because Tanaka's not doing well, and Sabathia is hit or miss, to say the least.
Yeah.
So these young starters like Pineda and Severino and Jordan Montgomery, they kind of need a voice. And, a voice shouldn't be a guy with a 6 ERA or a guy who one day pitches like an ace and one day pitches like nothing.
Right.
It needs to be an ace. It needs to be a veteran that produces well. And I think Archer is one of those guys. Quintana can be one of those guys. They need someone. Maybe even a piece for not the back end of the bullpen, but another bullpen piece to have. Because, a lot of people, you pretty much just talk about, Clippard, Betances, and Chapman. And
right.
Chapman, they're getting back. But you don't really talk about the other guys in the pen. If they can go after one more bullpen piece, man, oh man, that bullpen would go from good to even better.
Yeah, and in an age now where so much emphasis is put on the bullpen that the starter only has to worry about getting through 6 innings, and then, like, if they've thrown 80 pitches, they could be done for the night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say, and a lot of radio personalities and MLB Network has said, nobody's going 9 innings anymore.
No.
Other than that rare exception, Clayton Kershaw, yeah. And someone from the Red Sox, I remember he pitched a complete game shutout, and then the next day he got sent down to the minors. It was Brian Johnson or Brian Anderson.
Something similar happened with the Rockies with Hoffman.
Yeah.
He pitched 6 innings of shutout ball or like 7 innings of shutout ball, and then he gets sent down the next day.
That must feel so terrible. Like, oh, I pitched a complete game shutout.
Yeah, but at the
Put him
same time
back in
too.
AAA.
But at the same time too, at least that could kind of give you like the confidence to be like, okay, I could pitch. If I could do that at the major league level, granted it was against the Philadelphia Phillies, but if I could do that at the major league level, I could go down to the minor leagues and still kill it.
Seems like it always comes back to the Phillies, huh?
Woo! Anyway.
Just fixing myself here.
I finished this iced tea. I'm going to go get hard liquor next. Thank you for that.
I think, honestly, after watching the Phillies, you should probably just drink and keep drinking.
We'll talk about my plans for that later, huh?
Just PM me your plans.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway.
But yeah, I mean, this division right now, I mean, we talked about the NL East being the worst division in baseball. I'd argue this is the best division in baseball. I don't
agree.
Yeah, because I mean, like, yeah, the NL Central is close, but like we said, none of those teams are really like standing out. But like, the New York Yankees have potential to be the best team in the American League. Well, I mean, until we get to the AL West, but they're one of the best teams in the American League.
Which kind of brings me to a question.
Yes.
Do you see the Orioles making the playoffs?
They definitely could.
They're always a team that's forgotten about until you realize they're in the playoffs.
Until you realize there's 2 wildcard spots?
Yes.
I do. I do think they can make the playoffs because obviously they have an offense that just, I mean, you talk about hitting bombs. Yeah, how about the names Trombo and Davis? Like
that alone, and you add an
Adam Jones, Manny Machado, who's been getting hot again. Like, this offense is not the issue. The issue has been the pitching, and I'm not sure how they've been, like, lately, but I know last month we talked about, like, Dylan Bundy was pitching well. And I think Kevin Gossman's actually been getting better, if I'm not mistaken.
Starting to, yeah. And Wade Miley comes out of nowhere with a 2.82 ERA.
Yeah, so if they add, like, maybe not necessarily an ace-eighth, but another, like, solid pitcher that can help carry them through, look out for the Orioles.
Exactly. Like, or even someone like Zach Britton's been hurt. Maybe go after a bullpen guy too. But
yeah, I mean, you got like a guy like Darren O'Day too that can at least somewhat help that as well. But
right. And Brad Brock too.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, like, you know, they're one of those teams that, you know, you don't realize just how good they are until they're in the playoffs.
Yeah. So because right now the 2 wildcard spots are the Orioles and the Red Sox.
Speaking of the Red Sox, can they make the playoffs? Because, you know, they just got Price back, which is great. They have Price and Sale. That's a great 1-2 punch right off the bat. But they seem to be struggling in the offensive department, especially from Bogarts.
They've been getting some signs of life lately from Bogarts and from Jackie Bradley Jr. too. This team has been interesting to watch without David Ortiz.
Yeah.
Obviously, losing David Ortiz, you're not only losing a perennial All-Star perennial MVP candidate, but you're losing the leader of that clubhouse.
And by the way, struggles from Bogarts, I don't mean like overall. I meant like just he's not really hitting for anything other than like singles. He's not really hitting for power. He's still hitting.
Yeah, I loved when he hit his first home run of the year a couple weeks ago, and he gets into the dugout and they give him the silent treatment.
Yeah, because, you know, here's a guy who hit 21 home runs last year, and he only has 2 in June. So
the good news is he doesn't have to be the power supply on that team.
True.
But, like, that's not what you signed Xander Bogaerts for. Like you said, you signed him for a high average. You signed him for great defensive plays. That's what you signed Xander Bogaerts for, and that's what you built him up for.
True, and it's like, you know, Bogarts, Bradley, I mean, was struggling. He started to come back to life, like you said.
So can this team make the playoffs? Yes, absolutely they can. You got to see how David Price adapts. People were worried about, like, oh, when his rehab starts, oh, he looked terrible. John Smoltz made a great point about, like, how, like, in AAA, look, like, there are times where, like, guys will throw, like, 3 scoreless innings and be upset at themselves because that's more there when your rehab starts in AAA, you're more worried about like how you feel with your stuff. Because if you throw 3 shutout innings and your stuff still feels terrible to you, you could still be in trouble in the big leagues.
Right.
But if maybe you get hit around for a little bit, but you're like, at least I'm working the kinks out, then you work the kinks out a little more in the majors, and then you're back to being yourself. So I think people are overreacting in terms of Price's terrible rehab assignment. Those are overrated anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're not supposed to like be like, oh well, he's got to throw a shutout or we keep him here. Like, no, that's not the purpose at all. The purpose is for him to be in a real game situation and have him be like, okay, yeah, my stuff wasn't the best down here, but I feel good enough that I'm healthy, I can come back. And that's what David Price has done. So if David Price can be back to being the David Price of old, then yeah, look out for the guys from Fenway Park. But we'll see. It wouldn't surprise me if the 2 AL wildcard teams are from the AL East, which is funny considering we both said that before the season started that the wildcard teams would come from the West. Whoops. But I mean,
anything's possible. I mean, hey, look,
yes.
look at the West now. I mean, it's pretty much the Astros, and that's it.
We'll get to it in a second. But yeah, can I see the Orioles? Can I see the Red Sox make the playoffs? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the wild card game is between those 2 teams.
There's a team we continuously fail to mention.
Tampa?
Do you see the Rays? Potentially, because they're a game over 500 in June. I'm not saying that's great, but it's good for them. Could you see them as a playoff team?
They're only a game and a half back. The wild card. Them obviously I see a little more less likely because they don't really wow me besides Chris Archer. Because I mean Longo is getting up there in age. Kiermaier, yeah, is good, but other than that, like nothing really to write home about. Like, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the Jays get hot and the Jays jump the Rays.
Which I wouldn't really be surprised if that happened, and that would kind of bring me to my next question.
Do you see the Jays making the playoffs?
Well, not even that. A lot of people were asking, like, this was early May, like if it was too late for them to make a push, even though it was only May. Yeah, do you see them being a playoff team? I don't know.
They could definitely make the push. Like their starting rotation's got to right themselves too. Yeah,
because Sanchez is injured and inconsistent, and
Stroman too.
What?
Same with J Happ too.
Yeah, J Happ and Stroman's not really doing that well.
He had a couple like
he's up and down.
Starts. Yeah, like
he's up and down.
But yeah, like that's another team that could definitely use another cog in the machine for starting pitching. But yeah, I mean, but again, that's another offense that when it gets hot, it gets hot. So this could be like the Pac-10 in football in terms of like, yeah, the defense or pitching might be terrible, but the offenses are going to light each other up every night. So that alone is going to get you a few wins. So could the Jays make the playoffs? If they continue to stay hot and keep going, they could.
Yeah, this is weird too, because like I think we have 3 divisions where you can make a case for pretty much every team.
Yeah.
Because AL Central, NL Central, and AL East.
And again, like I'm doubling down on my statement that like the AL East right now is the most fun division to watch in baseball.
Right. I actually agree with that.
Because of the firepower, the star power, just it's fun to watch night in, night out.
Right. And then there's the West. The forgotten West.
Well, I mean, you say best team in baseball, I say the Houston Astros.
Well, let's talk a little bit about another very, very close top 3 with 2 teams that I didn't expect to be in that top 3, with one team that I did expect. Meanwhile, there's another team in that same division that should be in the top 3 and is not. That would be the NL West.
So you want to go there first before the AL West?
Yeah, let's end with the Houston Astros. Let's end with the best team. So let's go.
So NL West.
First.
Got it. All right. Yeah.
I mean, the Dodgers, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks. I did not expect this to be a race.
Yeah, it's really Sorry, I'm pulling up stats, but yeah, but it's. I mean, you talk about races that are crazy. Yeah, the Dodgers are back up in front now, but hot on their tails, the two teams who have been fighting for first for the most part of this season are the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. And I'll tell you what, man, if this is a 3-horse race between those three teams, sign me up because that's exciting. It's different. And like those two bottom teams, the Rockies and Diamondbacks, at first, like you might hear people scoff and think like, oh, like they're maybe just hot, whatever. Like, but if you look, they deserve to be there. Absolutely.
They do because look at the Rockies, for example. They already have a great offense, and that's without Coors Field. And even like right now, it's without Coors Field because they're
playing better on the road.
Yeah.
Like people crow all the time. Oh, it's Coors Field, Coors Field. They are playing better baseball away from their home park right now.
Yeah, now it's
from the high Rocky Mountain altitude.
Now it's Chase Field, Dodger Stadium, Citi Field, Citizens Bank Park. Marlins Park.
I knew it was coming. I was at one of the games that they blew out the Phillies at. It was not fun. But yeah, like Nolan Arenado, a guy who is a perennial MVP candidate, hits better on the road than he does in Coors Field. That's not by accident. That means, hey, maybe we need to give the Rockies their due.
And then you got Charlie Blackmon, who's just taken his ball and ran with it.
Yeah, Chuck Nasty was going to be the player I was going to highlight. A 320, and that's his Twitter handle, by the way. So if you ever need to follow him and his sweet beard. But a 320 batting average, 1.5 wins above replacement. I said this to you off cam, and I'm going to say it on cam. If he keeps up this pace, he's the NL MVP.
Might be. And I'm watching MLB Network now, and there was a stat about Blackmon, coincidentally, that came up on the bottom of the screen. His last 20 games, 20 RBIs, 10 extra base hits.
He's on pace for like around 100 RBI as the leadoff guy.
Yeah. It doesn't. I think the last time it happened was with Ellsbury.
Yeah, like it's insanity, but this guy is the real deal. Like, and you mentioned off cam too about like how he was kind of struggling for like a little bit like at end of April, and people were kind of questioning him. Like, he's always the guy you count on to be a solid player, and he's their catalyst.
And right now, he's more than just a solid player.
Exactly.
He's their best player.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, I mean, yeah, you have Carlos Gonzalez there too, but he's like, Blackmon's pretty much like the leader of this team as well. Like, those are two voices right at the top that are like good, like solid guys who know how to fire up their clubhouse.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lineup of Cargo, Blackmon, Arenado, Desmond, Reynolds, right there. That's a playoff caliber offense. Just with those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now you have Senzatella, Freeland, and whoever their other starters are.
German, what's his name?
German, Chatwood. And they have
Marquez, yeah.
They have 4 rookies that are pitching like aces. And their ace, Tyler Chatwood, is pitching like a rookie in terms of like a Coors Field rookie that struggles.
Yeah, and at this point too, like, what happens when John Gray comes back?
6-man rotation?
I don't know, man.
Or Chatwood
normally has been looked at as their ace for the past couple years.
Or maybe Chatwood goes to the pen. I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe like Tyler Anderson too.
Yeah, because he's been struggling too. But yeah, I mean, the Rockies pitching staff is actually not their weakness.
And neither is their closer.
No, 20-plus saves Greg Holland for a guy that missed all of last year. damn, that was a steal for them in free agency.
It's amazing, man. Like, it's crazy how people come out of the woodwork. And keep in mind, he's a closer, so the next year he could just stumble and bumble and end up somewhere else as a setup man. See, like, how, like, Jim Johnson one year had 50 saves for the Orioles, then fell off the wagon for a little bit, now is semi-reliable for Atlanta.
But, it's scary to think that when you looked at last year's free agent class, or this past offseason, closer was a really hot position because you had Jansen, you had Melanson, you had
Chapman.
And out of all those guys, Greg Holland is the better closer.
Yeah.
It's funny how baseball works.
And that's why, like, people either love or hate baseball, because there are these weird things that don't happen in other sports.
Right. It's like, Chapman, DL. Melanson was on the DL. Jansen has been pitching very well, and
Jansen's been solid,
and he's going to continue to pitch very well because he strikes out a lot of batters.
He's in a very pitcher-friendly park in Dodger Stadium.
Yes, and he's got nasty stuff in general.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic for the Dodgers.
But Greg Holland, 29 strikeouts in 20 innings, 22 games. He saved all 20 of his games, of his opportunities.
Yes.
Like, that is ridiculous. And for a Rockies closer to be that dominant, and they didn't even get him. They got him on the cheap in free agency because he was one of those guys that was one of the closers overlooked because you had those big three names out there, and he's turned into the best closer. Wow. I honestly think this Rockies team's for real.
Yeah, because again, it's June now, so you can't just be like, oh yeah, we'll see how it is like June, July. No, it's June now, and they're only like the Diamondbacks are only a half game out of first place. So guess what? Time to call this what it is. It's a 3-horse race right now.
And then we get to the Diamondbacks too, and I said this after the Mets series where they swept the Mets. I think the Diamondbacks are for real.
Yeah. You have old reliable and Paul Goldschmidt, 303 batting average.
But the real standout for me, especially in May, was Jake Lamb.
Jake Lamb's got some pop, dude.
Who's hitting 283 with 14 homers, 46 RBIs. I think he's an all-star this year.
Yeah.
No question. I think that the Diamondbacks are going to go into the all-star game with a lot of all-stars. The Rockies are going to go in with a lot of all-stars. And I never expected this. I expected it to be normally the normal Dodgers-Giants race. And the Giants are tied for 4th with the Padres.
Yeah, but again, they're playing the Philadelphia Phillies, so expect them to break that tie relatively soon. And also, too, keeping in mind, coming back to the Diamondbacks real quick, Zach Greinke is looking like the ace of old, man. 7-3 record, 3.06 ERA. Yeah, he won't fight for a Cy Young, but he's looking solid.
And Greinke has certainly been an ace for them, but I think their ace is Robbie Ray.
Yeah, Robbie Ray is a stud.
84 strikeouts, 69 innings. That guy could strike.
Oh, yeah, Robbie Ray and Zach Greinke and Robbie Ray are a great 1-2.
And, you got a nice combination of a righty and a lefty who can strike out a lot of batters, who could pitch for a low ERA, and I think now Robbie Ray is finally starting to break out. So now that they got him, they got Greinke back, they have a stellar offense, which I think everybody predicted them to have. I think they're for real. I think they could be a wild card team, or maybe they are a wild card team, or maybe they're a division winning team. And then
right now they're the two in the wild card game.
Yeah. And a Diamondbacks Rockies wild card game.
Who saw that coming?
Sign me up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you got the Dodgers there too. And oh yeah, by the way, the Dodgers are there.
As expected.
As expected. And they were my pick to win the division, and I had the Giants finishing at second. But you got Kershaw, you still have Jansen. They have a lot of the success without Adrian Gonzalez because he hasn't really done a lot.
Yeah, but then in comes Cody Bellinger.
In comes Cody Bellinger, and everything changed.
Pretty much.
Cody Bellinger has stood out. Forsythe just came back too, so
Corey Seager's being all reliable.
Pretty much, yeah. You still got Kershaw, and even though Maeda is struggling, he's probably gonna come back eventually.
Yeah.
But wow, I mean, this is a really fun division.
Yeah.
And we talked about some standout performers, and another one is Cody Bellinger, like we mentioned. He just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and good for him. And it's funny too, considering like Adrian Gonzalez went on the DL for the first time ever this past month.
Same with Trout.
Well, Trout obviously is a little younger, but Gonzalez has been in the league for a few years now.
Right.
Never been on the DL. That's insanity.
See, the one thing though, and even though Bellinger, he has hit a lot of home runs, but he also struck out 40 times in May.
Yeah. It all depends on how you view strikeouts, though, because, like, Mark Reynolds, like, when he talks about, like, his strikeout problem, which he's obviously aware that he has, he always says, like, look, he's like, I just look at it as another out. He's like, if you strike out, it's the same as if you fly out. It's the same as if you hit a grounder the second. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
which I can kind of agree with him on.
Yeah, I could see his point. But it gets to a point where, you're striking out more, you have a higher strikeout percentage than a batting average. Like, that should be a wake-up call right now.
Well, too much of a good thing is never a good thing, but...
Because I think one year Reynolds hit, like, 210, and he had 220 strikeouts.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this is going to turn into a really fun three-team race down the stretch. And then you get to the division that, for me, was supposed to be a three-team race, and it's turned into just the Astros. Easily the best team in the American League. Easily the best team in baseball. And that's even with the Dodgers, Rockies, and Diamondbacks being as successful as they are.
Yeah, this Astros team is looking a lot like the Cubs did last year. In terms of like just a hot as anything start, a perfect blend of young nucleus and veterans. Like in the offseason, they made moves for guys like Carlos Beltran, Brian McCann, Josh Reddick. A perfect blend of veterans. And it helps too that Dallas Keuchel is back to Cy Young Dallas Keuchel.
Oh, 10-0 Dallas Keuchel, might I add.
Yeah, I mean, people get like, I'm a believer in like wins don't necessarily like matter too much for the well. Yeah, he's 8-0, a 2.5 wins above replacement.
Oh, he's 8-0.
Yeah, 1.8.
My bad.
It's all right, and a 1.81 ERA. Yeah, that sounds like an ace. That sounds like a Cy Young winner. Like that sounds like Nolan Ryan is pitching for them instead of Dallas Keuchel.
Pretty much.
But this team is just a perfect storm of good right now. And like even some like unexpected names too. Like yeah, your Altuves, your Springers are doing well, but Jake Marisnick has been doing well too with a 2.7 average, 6 home runs, 10 RBI, 5 stolen bases.
Actually, Tyler, we're both wrong. He's 9-0.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Baseball Reference lied to me. But like Jake Marisnick is hitting his way into the lineup, playing well. This team is just really good right now. And I know that's the most obvious statement besides the fact that the Phillies are really bad that I'm going to make all day. But like sometimes the obvious statement is the one you've got to make, and it's obvious that the Houston Astros are the World Series favorite right now.
Oh, easily. Yeah, they've easily become what the Cubs were last year, and that's not even a question. A combination of youth and veteran presence, a combination of a great pitching staff with, and let me rephrase that. Here's a pitching staff that ever since the offseason, people have been talking that they need another pitcher, they need another ace. They have Keuchel, but they need somebody else.
Right.
They have the best ERA in the American League. So they're not really in dire need for somebody, and that's not just because of Keuchel. Lance McCullers had I believe it was a sub-1 ERA in May. He was 4-0, and he's pitching like expected, like everybody thought he was going to. He's pitching really well. It doesn't help that Charlie Morton went on the DL and Joe Musgrove went on the DL. And Keuchel was on the DL for a little bit too. But, if this pitching staff right now that's currently first in the AL and ERA can keep it up, they may not even need another pitcher.
Yeah, they've been talking about, and again, we talked about this a little more, off camera too before we went on air, but it wouldn't surprise me if they don't need to go out and get an ace like a Quintana or whatever that we thought, but maybe just a reliable piece. You know what I mean? Like I mentioned to you before, and again, this is the example because it's the best one I know, but if a Jeremy Hellickson gets hot and makes a few quality starts around June, July, and could be that key third man in that rotation, then the Astros go for it. But they don't have to go out and get a Garrett Cole or anything like that.
Right. And then you got the Mariners, who are 5-1 in their last 6 games. They're starting to heat up a little bit. The Rangers are starting to find some sort of fire, even though they're under 500 now. This isn't turning into the 3-team race I thought it'd be, but it can still be a fun wild card race if the Mariners and Rangers, can battle back. And the Rangers are entering a 2-game series against the Mets, so that could be a good start.
Hey, let's not forget the team that's second in this division right now.
Let's talk about the troutless Los Angeles Angels.
Yeah. It is a key point to mention. Yeah, losing him for 6 to 8 weeks hurts because duh.
It's Mike Trout. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, and on something like a thumb injury too. It's not like a strained hamstring or anything like that. Although he was battling a strained hammy,
he has a torn UCL in his thumb.
Yeah, because he was sliding in the second, I believe, and hurt it.
Right.
But yeah.
Imagine if it was a torn UCL in his elbow. Oh God. An entire year without Mike Trout.
Yeah, but although there is someone I want to highlight from the Los Angeles Angels, and that is Albert Pujols.
Oh yeah,
because he's been showing signs of maybe not necessarily the Pujols of old per se, but he's definitely been hotter than he once was. And oh yeah, he's 1 home run away from being the 9th player ever to hit 600 home runs. His nickname was the Machine for a reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just absolute stud. I'm on his baseball reference page right now. 3-time MVP, Rookie of the Year, 2-time World Series champion, 10-time All-Star, an NLCS MVP, 3-time Major League Baseball Player of the Year, a batting title, 2 Gold Gloves. Hello, Cooperstown. This. It's not even a debate. It's just how, the years when he was really good, he was really good.
Yeah. Even his first year, hit over 40 home runs, Rookie of the Year, MVPs, World Series titles. He's 1 away from 600, and that's actually, it's kind of been a little bit odd that that's not getting more attention.
I think part of it is it's kind of like how Mike Trout being an MVP didn't really get too much attention, in the sense that he's on not only a West Coast team, but the Los Angeles Angels, who are average at best.
Right.
That's what it is. If he was still on the St. Louis Cardinals, this would be getting all the attention in the world.
Yeah, because I remember even Ichiro when he was going after his 3,000th hit, like his 3,000 MLB hit.
Yeah, let's not forget all the other thousands he had in Japan.
Yeah. But that wasn't really getting a lot of focus, and I can understand why. Like, he plays for the Marlins, and he's over the age of 40. He's not what he was, so I kind of get it. But it's still an accomplishment that should be celebrated.
Oh yeah, and it was the same thing too. Like when a few years back when Jim Thome got the 600.
Right, and I think he had 2 home runs in that game too.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think he did. But he was on the Minnesota Twins, who were, I think, decent at the time. But
2011, I think it was 2011. No, they were not.
I didn't remember exactly. Okay,
they finished 63 and 99. They were decent.
Decently in last place. Yeah, I get it.
It's all right.
But the point remains the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when he hits it, he'll get all the attention, and as he should, because we talked earlier about Miguel Cabrera being the good guy of the game. The same goes for Albert Pujols. Like, nobody dislikes Albert Pujols for any, like, even when he went to Los Angeles after winning the title in St. Louis, no one really put him at a fault for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't like remember way back when A-Rod went to Seattle was it Seattle or Texas?
He went to Texas from Seattle.
Oh, and I remember his first at bat. You just see in the background things fluttering in the background in the stands. You're like, "What's that?" Fans were throwing Monopoly money from the rafters. I'm like, that is awesome. Oh, that is so funny.
Just imagine if that Mariners team had A-Rod, Griffey, and Ichiro. Because remember, when Ichiro started, A-Rod and Griffey were gone.
Yeah, because Griffey went to the Reds. That's right.
And, even without Griffey or A-Rod, they managed to win 114 or 116 games in
it's the record.
Yeah, still a major league record.
And then they collapsed in the playoffs.
Yeah, they were eliminated in the first round.
Hey, the Phillies did the same thing in 2011 when they won over 100 games. They lost in the wild card round to the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yep.
Or the NLDS, rather.
The eventual World Series champion, St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, and that's funny because what's funny too about that Phillies team is they sealed their kind of sealed their own fate in a way, because keep in mind, the reason the Cardinals made it into the playoffs on that wacky wild card Wednesday was because the Phillies took the Braves into 15 innings and beat the Braves, who were fighting to beat the Cardinals.
That was the greatest day in baseball.
Yeah.
Game 162, 2011.
What a day.
The fate of 4 teams.
Yeah, the Orioles beat the Red Sox. The Rays walk off the Yankees.
After being down 7-1.
Yeah.
Or 7-0, I think it was.
Again, the Phillies beating the Braves in extras to clinch the seed for the Cardinals.
And then the Cardinals blank the Astros to make sure that they clinch.
Yeah.
Everybody was thinking are there going to be tiebreakers? Are we going to have to settle it?
Yeah, that's right.
And none of that happened. Instead, you got 6 of the greatest hours of baseball.
Yeah.
And it's funny, too, because, the Red Sox and Orioles, they went into a rain delay. So people were thinking, is this game going to finish?
The Cardinals were watching the Phillies beat the Braves in their clubhouse.
Yeah.
They were all huddled around TVs.
And they weren't even at home. They were in Houston.
Yes, they were. They were in the road clubhouse.
And then I think there were some other teams that clinched that day. I think the Brewers clinched the Central that day. I could be wrong. I actually am wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they clinched a little earlier.
Yeah, I am wrong. Because if the Cardinals were the wild card team, then yeah, you're okay.
Uh-huh.
My bad.
But still, it's just outstanding.
Yeah, and even looking back at that, the Brewers were in the playoffs as recently as 6 years ago.
Thanks to Niger Morgan.
That Diamondbacks Brewers series was actually pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
And hell, the Diamondbacks were in the playoffs as recently
They were. Yes, they were.
But yeah, that pretty much caps off our recap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see like what happens next. Like, I know that's the normal thing to say after these shows, but I mean, when you have teams like the Twins, the Brewers coming out of nowhere, the Yankees looking hot as a young team, the not Cardinals, the Diamondbacks and Rockies making the NL West a 3-horse race. This is when baseball gets exciting, folks. And when the weather gets hotter, the ball starts flying.
Yep.
So we could see the Chicago Cubs just have an incredible month of June.
Absolutely.
And first place in July.
Absolutely. Let's finish it off with some rapid fire.
Hit it.
Will the Astros win 100 games?
Yes.
Will the Cubs make the playoffs? I know we kind of touched on it earlier.
They'll make it interesting, but no.
Interesting. Okay. Will the Mets finish above 500?
What's their record at now? Maybe.
Okay.
If they get Cespedes back healthy and he performs, then they might finish like 81 and 81.
Okay. Will Michael Conforto be an All-Star?
Ooh. Can I look at his stats real quick?
Sure. I mean, he should be an All-Star, but he's not on the ballot because he didn't start opening day.
Thank you, Major League Baseball. Yeah, I don't see why not, especially on a Mets team that's so hit or miss. Why can't he be their representative? Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel. I mean, I'm sure DeGrom will probably be, even though he's not really pitching well. I don't know, or maybe Blevins to add a reliever. I don't know. Will the Phillies lose 100 games?
Probably.
I'm sorry to keep bringing them up, but
this is not filled with vodka. That's a shame.
Will the Royals be sellers at the deadline?
Yes.
And I'll kind of expand on that. They have 4 key pieces that are free agents after this year. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if
Eric Hosmer, Lorenzo Cain,
Escobar, I believe, and I think Moustakas, or maybe one of their pitchers. It also doesn't help that Duffy went on the DL.
Yeah. Is Vargas still hot though?
Vargas is still hot, and he's actually the guy I forgot to talk about. Jason Vargas, of all people.
Yeah, Irvin Santana and Jason Vargas are the 2 standout pitchers in that division.
Yep. Will the Marlins finish ahead of the Braves? Okay,
yes.
I agree with that. How many teams will we touched base on these 2? How many teams will make the postseason from the NL West? Because remember that even though the Giants are 11 back, you never know.
I'm gonna take the cop out and say at least 2.
Okay.
Because that last wild card could be up for debate because one of those teams could easily fall off. Injuries can happen at any time to anybody. So I'll say at least 2. I think they'll get obviously their division winner, and either the Rockies or the Diamondbacks or even the Dodgers will be like the first wild card.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Okay. How about the AL West?
How many teams?
Yeah.
1, and it's from Houston.
Okay.
I mean, because, again, like, the Angels are in second. They're without Mike Trout, so they're going to scuffle. Texas has to show me more. Seattle, I'm disappointed in. They need to get their rotation back in shape quickly. And Oakland is Oakland. So, yeah, 1.
And how about the AL East?
Oh, boy.
I know you kind of touched base on it earlier, and I asked, like,
I'm going to give the same cop-out of at least 2 because, again, the Indians are only 1 back, So
Yeah.
if the Twins stay around and the Indians take hold of the division, if the Twins stay around, they could be a wild card team.
That is true.
Could be. So we'll see how wrong I am in a month.
All right. Those are all the questions. That's the recap. Thank
Sweet.
you for joining us. We have 0 viewers at the moment.
Don't point that out to me.
But we had a few on earlier, so for those who were watching, thank you.
We are on in the middle of Saturday afternoon too, so
That is true. For those who will watch when this is eventually archived on the channel, thank you. For those for those who have watched, who have subscribed, who have liked, who have disliked, who have commented, who have asked questions, who have appeared as guests on podcasts or as hosts on podcasts, thank you for that. But yeah, this is podcast number 13, number 14. I don't know when it's coming, which kind of brings me to my next point. I did promise an unlimited podcast schedule. I'm holding off on that for now because my interest in wrestling is dwindling, as it should be because it sucks. But
WWE sucks, yeah.
Yeah, it does. There will definitely be a podcast about a certain wrestler that died 10 years ago. That's coming up in late June.
Right.
I did get some more information on work, so I'm going to try to build off around that, but there will still be more content on this channel, so don't worry about that. But thank you, Tyler, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. These are always fun. I'm planning to do another one for a June recap and then a mid-season recap the week of the All-Star break, so be prepared for that too.
Yeah, we may as well just wait up for that one, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. But
because at that point too, you could preview like who's going to be buyers and sellers.
Exactly, buyers and sellers, and we'll talk about like the All-Star rosters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But thank you. I'm Matt from Unlimited. You have watched the Unlimited podcast.